I still remember that night. No flowers, no wine, just 2 boxes of Chinese takeout on the kitchen table, and one sentence that changed everything. "Ethan, I think we should pause our marriage for a while." She said it like she was hitting the pause button on Netflix. I looked at the chopsticks in my hand. They froze mid-air. Pause our marriage, not divorce, not separation, just a polite way to leave without the guilt of saying goodbye. I didn't ask why, didn't argue. I just said, sure. She didn't understand. Sometimes the best revenge isn't rage. It's silence. It's letting them realize you were never the one on pause. If someone ever told you, yeah, I need space to find myself, maybe it's time you found yourself too. The rain outside was soft, almost polite, the kind that taps the window instead of hitting it. Our kitchen lights hummed quietly. Rachel sat across from me, scrolling through her phone between bites of lo mein. It was just another Wednesday, or so I thought. She looked up, her tone calm, professional even. "I just think we both need a little clarity," she said. "Some space." Clarity. Space. Words that sound wise but taste like distance. I nodded slowly. "Space for what?" She stabbed her food, eyes avoiding mine. "Us. To see if we're still happy." Her voice was steady, but I could hear something rehearsed beneath it. 6 years of marriage, and somehow we'd ended up talking like coworkers. I remember thinking, this can't be how marriages end. Not with shouting, not with tears, but with takeout containers and corporate vocabulary. The rain picked up. The smell of ginger and soy sauce filled the silence. She went back to eating like nothing happened. I watched her, realizing the woman I married had quietly become a stranger. And right there, over lukewarm noodles, I understood. Something had already ended. She just didn't have the courage to say it out loud. I set my chopsticks down, not hard, just slow enough for her to notice. I took a breath, steady, quiet. "Okay," I said. One word, no tone, no emotion. Her fork froze. "Okay, that's it?" "Yeah," I said. "If that's what you need." She waited for the explosion, the questions, the begging, the scene. But it didn't come. I just kept eating. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was sharp. She shifted in her chair, pretending to focus on her food. Inside, I felt something strange. Not anger, not pain, just stillness. Like I'd stepped out of a storm I didn't even know I'd been living in. She talked a little more, trying to fill the air, but her words blurred into the background. I wasn't listening anymore. Because deep down, I'd already made a decision, not about her, but about me. That night, while she planned her trip to Tokyo, I realized silence can say more than any fight ever could. Sometimes you don't win by arguing. You win by refusing to play the game. The days that followed felt strange. The house was quiet, but tense. Rachel kept bringing it up, circling the topic like a bird that couldn't find a place to land. "So, you're really fine with this?" she asked while folding laundry. "Sure," I said. "You do what you need to do." She frowned, like she'd bitten into something sour. She tried teasing, even poking, mentioned how long 3 weeks can feel, how she might rethink things while away. I just nodded. The truth? I wanted to see what she'd do when she couldn't provoke me. No reaction, no argument, just space. Exactly what she asked for. By Friday night, she was packing. I stayed in the living room, watching the news, pretending not to notice. She came out twice, lingered in the doorway, said nothing. I didn't either. It's funny how silence turns the tables. The one who controls the noise usually controls the room, but once the noise stops, they lose balance. 3 days of calm felt heavier to her than 3 years of talking ever had. And by the time Saturday came, I could tell she was afraid of what that calm really meant. Her flight was early. I woke before dawn, the house still half asleep, the smell of rain mixed with coffee. I poured her a travel mug, the way I used to when she had early meetings. Old habits die last. When she walked out, suitcase by her side, she looked smaller somehow. "This is it, I guess," she said. I handed her the cup. "Safe flight." She hesitated, eyes searching my face. "Are you sure you're okay with this?" I smiled. Not warm, not cold, just neutral. "You wanted a pause," I said. "Have a great trip." She nodded, unsure whether to hug me or not. She didn't. The door clicked shut behind her. Through the window, I watched the Uber pull away, its taillights fading down the wet street. And for the first time in years, I didn't chase after anyone, Didn't explain, didn't beg. All I felt was air. Light, cold, and honest. Freedom doesn't always feel good at first. Sometimes it feels like loss wearing a new suit. The sound of the car faded. Silence filled the house like water. I leaned against the door, breathing slow. 3 weeks. That's what she'd said. 3 weeks of clarity. I looked around. The kitchen, the half-empty mugs, the mess we'd made of each other. For a moment, I almost felt the pull to call her back. Almost. But instead, I reached for my phone, opened notes, typed, "Things to do while marriage is on pause." The first line came easy. Find out if I even want to press play again. Outside, the sky was turning gray-blue. A new day starting, quietly. I stood there, barefoot on the cold tile, realizing something simple. This wasn't an ending. It was the first real breath I'd taken in years, and for the first time, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt like mine. I stood there for a long time after she left. The silence had weight, but not fear anymore. It felt open. I picked up my phone and opened notes. Blank screen. New page. Things to do while the marriage is on pause. First line came out easy. Figure out if I even want to press play again. For years, my choices had revolved around we. Now I wanted to see what I looked like on my own. I added a few lines. Go to the gym. Call Trevor. Sleep without worrying. Nothing dramatic, just small human things I hadn't done without guilt. I closed the phone and leaned back on the counter. For the first time, my life felt like a space I could move in. No permission needed, no approval required. It wasn't happiness yet, but it was air. And breathing, I realized, was a pretty good place to start. Saturday morning came quiet. I didn't make the bed, didn't shave, ordered pizza at 10 a.m. Because why not? I turned on the stereo, played the old rock album Rachel hated, volume up, windows open. At first, it felt wrong, like breaking some invisible rule. Then I laughed. A real laugh I hadn't heard in my own house for years. Every sound, every mess felt like a small rebellion. Dishes in the sink, music too loud, freedom with crumbs on the counter. Around noon, I sat on the couch, greasy box beside me, rain still sliding down the glass. I waited for guilt to hit. It didn't. Instead, a quiet thought appeared. Maybe I've been living paused long before she ever said it. That sentence sat with me. Simple. True. I looked at the empty room and whispered to no one. Guess I just pressed play. By Sunday afternoon, I found his number, Trevor Hayes. We hadn't spoken in 2 years, not since Rachel decided he was a bad influence. The phone rang. Ethan? Holy hell, man, long time. His voice was the same, loud, honest, alive. We talked for hours about nothing, about everything. Work, sports, stupid old stories. At some point, he asked, "How's Rachel?" I told him about the pause. He whistled. She really said that? Word for word. And you said yes? Seemed easier than the alternative. Silence for a beat. Then he laughed softly. Man, you sound different. Lighter. Maybe I was. Maybe it was the beer in my hand or the freedom in my lungs. When we hung up, I sat back and realized something simple. Friendship had never been the problem. Control had. That night I slept without checking my phone. First time in years. Next day he called back. Been thinking about what you said, he told me. This isn't a pause, Ethan. It's a test. A test, I asked. Yeah, she's testing the waters while keeping you as backup. Freedom without consequences. Don't be the safety net. His words landed heavy. I didn't argue because I knew he was right. I had seen that pattern before. In friends, in couples who pretend space means growth. It usually means permission. Trevor continued, use these weeks smart. Figure out what you want. Because she already knows what she wants to try. After we hung up, I sat on the porch with a beer. The sky was gray. Seattle kind of gray that feels like truth. I thought about what freedom means when you've forgotten you had any. Maybe this wasn't her test after all. Maybe it was mine. Monday morning, I took a personal day. Downtown was wet and cold. I walked into a law office that smelled like leather and paper. Richard Caldwell, gray suit, steady eyes, shook my hand. What brings you in? I need to understand my options. He listened while I told him everything. Didn't interrupt, just took notes on a yellow pad. When I finished, he leaned back. Let me ask you, Ethan, do you think she's coming back to fix this marriage? I thought about it. No, she's coming back to find me broken and grateful. He nodded. I've seen that before. Use this time to get your ducks in a row. Finances, documents, rights. I left with a folder and a strange calm, not because I was planning divorce, because I was planning self-respect. Walking to the car, I realized money isn't just power, it's clarity. And clarity, for once, was mine. Caldwell's words followed me out the door. Get your ducks in a row, he'd said. I didn't even know I had ducks. I stopped at a coffee shop, folder still under my arm. Inside it, lists, copies, advice. Nothing emotional, just structure. For years, Rachel had handled the finances, budgets, taxes, joint accounts. I told myself she was better at it. Maybe I'd just given up that power. Now I sat by the window, opening statements, bank summaries, passwords. For the first time in a long while, I looked at numbers that were mine. It wasn't about preparing for divorce. It was about remembering ownership, my paycheck, my choices, my name on the account. The coffee cooled, untouched. Outside, the clouds broke just enough for a thin line of light. I took that as a sign. Sometimes security isn't a lawyer's folder. It's knowing where your life begins and ends. And who has the keys. When I left the cafe, I wasn't scared. I was ready. Whatever happened when she came back, I'd face it standing up, not waiting to be rescued. Tuesday morning, I drove to the old gym, the one I used to go to before we became her rules. The smell hit me. Sweat, iron, effort, guys grunting, weights clanging, real noise, noise that meant life. I changed into an old t-shirt, looked at myself in the mirror. A little older, softer, but still here. First set was shaky. Second one felt right. By the third, my lungs burned in a way that reminded me I was still alive. No one cared who I was or why I was there. That was the beauty of it. Everyone just lifted. When I walked out an hour later, arms aching, shirt damp, I felt something new. Not pride exactly, just ownership. Rachel had taken the emotional space, but she hadn't taken this. My body, my drive, my sweat. In the car, I sat for a moment, heart steady, the old rhythm coming back. 6 years gone, one workout to start over. That night, my phone buzzed. Unknown number first, then her name. Landed safe. Time difference is brutal. Miss you. I stared at it for a while. The words looked heavy, practiced. Miss you. 2 syllables trying to sound sincere. 6 months ago, that message would have pulled me apart. Now it just sat there on the screen. I typed back, glad you made it safe. Get some rest. Short, polite, empty. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, came back again. Then nothing. I set the phone down. No rush of guilt. No ache of missing her. Just quiet. Funny how love turns into muscle memory. You still reach for it even after the feeling's gone. That night, I slept well. Better than I had any right to. Outside, rain hit the windows again, but it didn't sound sad this time. It sounded clean. The house changed with her gone. Not empty, just honest. I started cleaning one room at a time. Not deep cleaning. More like erasing. Candles she liked. Framed quotes about balance and energy. Gone. I opened windows, let the air in. Seattle smelled like rain and wood. Not her perfume. Each drawer I cleared felt lighter. Every surface became mine again. I found old photos, me with friends, hiking trips, moments I'd boxed away because she called them childish. I left them out this time. By evening, the place looked smaller, but real, like I'd scraped the paint off and found something solid underneath. People say homes hold memories. Maybe. But sometimes they hold control. And when that control leaves, the walls finally breathe again. I sat on the couch, coffee in hand, looked around and thought, this isn't our house anymore. It's mine. And it finally feels like home. Thursday night, the screen lit up. Her face appeared. Hotel lighting. Professional smile. Hey, she said. Haven't heard much from you. Been busy, I answered. How's Tokyo? Interesting. Meetings are intense. She hesitated. I guess I expected you to be more upset. I almost smiled. You wanted space, I said. I'm giving you space. Her brows pulled together. You're being distant. I'm being respectful of your boundaries. For a second, she didn't know what to say. The control she once had wasn't landing anymore. Do you even care about this marriage? She asked. I met her eyes through the screen. I care about being in a marriage where both people want to be there. Silence. Not awkward. Final. She ended the call first. I watched the reflection fade from the screen. Then the cursor blinked against the black glass. In that quiet, I realized she wanted a reaction. Instead, she got proof I was finally done performing. The screen went black. Her face vanished, replaced by my own reflection. For a moment, I just sat there, silent, still. Then I smiled, not out of spite, not out of victory, just relief. For years, she'd been the one ending calls in anger. Now it didn't sting. It felt like a door closing that didn't need to reopen. I set the phone down, leaned back in the chair, and realized something subtle had shifted. She wasn't the one steering anymore. I was. Power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's a man finishing his dinner after a storm of guilt fails to move him. I walked to the kitchen, rinsed my cup, and felt the weight of 6 years fall off like dust. Control used to look like winning arguments. Now it looked like peace. And peace, I was learning, is a hell of a lot stronger. Friday came. Trevor showed up with burgers and beer. The smell of grease and hops filled the house, replacing candles and tension. We sat on the couch, TV flickering between plays. He looked at me, then shook his head. "You look different, man." "Different how?" I asked. "Like you've been sleeping," he said. He wasn't wrong. For the first time in years, my shoulders weren't tight. I laughed without measuring every sound. We talked about old things, road trips, college fights, the kind of dumb stories that used to get me scolded for being immature. At one point, he raised his beer. "Whatever this pause is, brother, don't let her hit play again unless you want to." We clinked bottles. The sound was small, but it felt like something breaking loose inside me. When he left, I stood in the doorway and realized the house didn't echo with her voice anymore. It echoed with mine. The week moved fast. Rachel's messages came daily now. Long paragraphs, pictures of Tokyo at night, fancy dinners, hotel views. I replied, but only when I felt like it. Simple words. No warmth, no anger, polite distance. She used to be the one waiting on my answers. Now she was the one checking her phone, watching those 3 dots appear and vanish. Funny how space works. It stretches, then snaps back at whoever asked for it. I started noticing how her tone changed. First curious, then confused, then something that sounded a lot like fear. By Thursday, her texts had a rhythm of apology disguised as small talk. "Hope your week's going well. Thinking about us. Miss you." I read them all, then set the phone down, not out of cruelty, but because for once I didn't owe her an answer. Friday afternoon, another message came. "What have you been up to?" I told her the truth. "Hit the gym. Lunch with Trevor." Her reply came fast. "Trevor? Since when are you hanging out with him again?" I stared at the screen, then typed slowly. "Since you're not here to stop me." Send. For a full minute, nothing. Then the typing dots blinked, disappeared, blinked again, and stopped. I leaned back in my chair, half smiling. It wasn't about Trevor. It was about control. Every choice I made now reminded her she no longer had any. And every calm reply I sent reminded me I finally did. She wanted to explore freedom in Tokyo. So did I. Just in a different way. Mine didn't come with guilt. Tuesday, I signed up for a woodworking class at the community center. Nothing fancy. 2 nights a week. Beginners welcome. The place smelled like sawdust and varnish. Rows of benches, rough blocks of walnut and maple. I liked it instantly. First project, a cutting board. Simple. Solid. You measure, cut, sand, shape, and the more you work it, the smoother it becomes. There was something honest about it. Wood doesn't lie. You press too hard, it cracks. You take your time, it fits. That night, I drove home with calloused hands and a quiet pride. Rachel once told me hobbies were a waste of time. Turns out, wasting time felt a lot like finding myself. I ran my fingers over the unfinished board, sawdust still clinging to the grain. It was rough now, imperfect, but it was mine. And maybe that was the point, to build something that didn't need her approval. Thursday night, I came home late from class. The smell of wood and oil was still on my hands. My phone lit up. 3 missed calls. Rachel. 2 voicemails followed. The first was calm. "Hey, just checking in. Call me when you get this." The second was sharper. "It's been 3 hours. Where are you? Call me." 3 hours. She'd once told me time apart was healthy. Now she couldn't handle a few hours of silence. I texted back, "Sorry, was in class. Everything okay?" It took a full minute before her reply came. "What class?" "Woodworking." Woodworking? Since when? Since I had free time. The typing dots appeared, blinked, vanished 5 times. Finally, her last message. We need to talk tomorrow. Actual talk, not texting. I stared at the screen, half amused. She'd asked for space, and now hated how it felt. For years, she'd trained me to explain myself. Now she was the one waiting for answers. Friday evening, right before dinner, my phone buzzed again. Her name lit up the screen. I let it ring once before answering. You sound busy, she said. I'm eating, I told her. What's up? A pause, then that careful tone, the one she used when she wanted control but didn't want to sound demanding. I've been thinking about us. This time apart has been hard. Has it? I asked, taking another bite of my sandwich. Of course it has. Haven't you been struggling? There it was, the question she'd been circling toward. The test. I swallowed. Managing. She went quiet. Managing, she repeated. That's it? You're just managing? Pretty much. I could almost hear her breathing quicken through the phone. She wanted panic, pain, proof that I still revolved around her, but the calm she heard instead, that scared her more than any argument could. Her voice cracked just a little. You don't sound like you care, Ethan. I do care, I said. Just not the same way anymore. What does that mean? It means I stopped confusing comfort with love. A long silence. I could picture her in that hotel room, sitting upright, trying to find the right mix of guilt and control. She sighed. I thought this time apart would help us, but you're using it to pull away. No, I said evenly. I'm using it to breathe. For years, every conversation had been a performance. Now the act was over. You're acting like this doesn't matter. It matters, I said. It just doesn't define me anymore. Those words landed hard, because she had built a version of us where her emotions set the temperature, and I was expected to adjust. Now I wasn't adjusting. I was stable, and stability to her felt like distance. The next evening she called again. No small talk this time. I don't understand what's happening to you, she said. Nothing's happening to me, I answered. I'm just finally being honest. Honest about what? I took a breath. About how you made it miserable to be myself. The words came slow, steady, but they burned. You don't see it, I continued. But for years, I stopped doing things I loved because it made you uncomfortable. I stopped laughing loud, stopped seeing friends, stopped existing outside your schedule. That's not fair, she said quickly. It's true. I heard her sniff, then silence. I thought I was supporting you, she whispered. No, you were managing me. There it was. The line I'd been too afraid to say before. It didn't feel cruel. It felt clean, like finally naming a wound before it could heal. She started crying, not loud, just quiet breaths between sentences. Ethan, please, that's not what I wanted. I know, I said softly, but it's what happened. You're twisting things, she said. I never stopped you from living your life. You didn't have to, I replied. You just made it exhausting to try. I could feel my throat tighten, but I didn't raise my voice. I'm not angry anymore, Rachel. I'm just tired. She cried harder now. And for the first time, I didn't rush to fix it. Didn't comfort. Didn't apologize. A part of me still cared. That part doesn't just vanish. But another part, the part that had been silent for years, finally stood tall. Finish your trip, I told her quietly. Figure out what you really want. She sniffed. And you? I already am. When the call ended, I sat there in the dark for a while, feeling both heavier and lighter than I'd ever felt before. Friday afternoon, my phone buzzed. Trevor's name flashed on the screen. Dude, you're not going to believe this, he said, laughing already. What? Katie ran into your wife's friend, Melissa. Guess what? Rachel's been calling her from Tokyo. Crying. I leaned back. Crying about what? About you. She told Melissa she thinks you're slipping away, that you've changed. I laughed quietly. Changed? She wanted pause. She's getting it. Trevor chuckled, then got serious. Man, she's freaking out because you're not begging. Keep it that way. I stared at the wall, still smiling. It hit me then. She'd built the whole pause expecting I'd sit here, waiting like a loyal backup file. Instead, I was moving on. Appreciate the update, I told him. Anytime, he said. You sound good, brother. I am good. After we hung up, I realized the irony. The moment she tried to control space, she lost it. That's the thing about distance. You can't own it once the other person stops chasing. The next week blurred by. Her messages came non-stop. Photos, updates, jokes, stories about Tokyo, each one trying to pull emotion from me. I responded to all of them. Short, polite, neutral. Hope you're well. Sounds nice. Enjoy yourself. Every word calm, measured, every silence intentional. I could almost feel her tension through the phone. When she wrote, "You sound distant," I typed back, "Just busy." That word, busy, drove her insane. She wanted a man waiting by the window. Instead, she had one living his life. By the 6th day, her tone turned softer, desperate. "Do you still think about me?" I didn't answer, not because I didn't care, because I'd already done my thinking. 9 days left, and she still hadn't realized. This pause wasn't hers anymore. It was mine. Saturday morning, my phone buzzed again. This time, the message was short. "Flying back Monday. Need to talk in person." No question mark, no warmth, just announcement. I read it twice, then set the phone down. Her trip was supposed to last another week, so why come back early? Fear. That was the only reason that made sense. I looked around the house, the weights in the corner, the stack of woodworking magazines, the new rhythm of my days. Everything had changed in her absence. Carter, the guy I met at the gym, noticed me checking my phone. "Everything good?" he asked. "Wife's cutting her trip short." He smirked. "That's interesting timing." "Yeah," I said. "I'm ready for that talk." And I was. Not because I'd rehearsed what to say, but because for once I didn't owe her an explanation. Sunday passed like a calm before the storm. I cleaned the house, not for her, for me. Folded laundry, vacuumed the living room, even polished the kitchen counter she used to fill with clutter. Then I finished the cutting board. Walnut, smooth, solid. Ran my hand along the surface, feeling every grain, every mark I'd sanded clean. It looked perfect, not because it was flawless, but because every imperfection had been worked through with patience. Maybe that was the lesson. She'd left to find herself. I stayed and built mine. By evening, the house smelled like wood and soap. Quiet. Still. I brewed coffee, sat at the table, and thought about the man she expected to find when she came home, and the man she'd actually meet. Monday afternoon, the Uber stopped outside. 2 suitcases. Her reflection in the window before she knocked. I opened the door. "Hey," she said softly. "Welcome back," I replied. She looked around, eyes tracing the gym weights, the woodworking tools, the absence of her touch. "The house looks different," she said. "I've been keeping busy." Her hair was shorter, her clothes new, but the exhaustion in her face wasn't jet lag. It was fear. She set her bags down, exhaled. "I made a mistake," she said. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I poured her a glass of water, set it on the counter between us. Her fingers shook slightly as she took it. That silence between us, it wasn't cold. It was final. 6 years, and now we stood there like 2 travelers meeting at the wrong terminal. "Let's talk," she whispered. "Sure," I said. "We've got time." Rachel's eyes scanned the room, the weights in the corner, the new lamp, the clean, open space that used to be cluttered with her touch. "The house looks different," she said. I nodded once. "I've been keeping busy." Something flickered across her face, a mix of confusion and unease. Busy wasn't what she expected to hear. She thought I'd been waiting, counting days. She walked toward the coffee table, her hand brushing the cutting board. "You made this?" "Yeah, finished it yesterday." Her fingers traced the smooth edges. "It's beautiful," she whispered. I shrugged. "It's solid." That word landed heavier than it should have, because for years I hadn't been. She looked at me again, maybe noticing what had changed, but not knowing how to name it. The silence between us wasn't defensive anymore. It was deliberate, and for the first time, she looked like the one standing on uncertain ground. She sat on the couch, shoulders slumped. The same woman who once controlled every conversation now looked small, careful. "I made a mistake," she said quietly. Her voice cracked a little. "Which one?" I asked. She flinched. The pause, asking for space. All of it. I thought time apart would help me figure things out, but instead it just made me realize what I could lose. I stayed standing, arms crossed loosely. "Lose? You," she said. "Us." Her eyes were glossy, but her tone was rehearsed. like a confession practiced in front of a mirror. Still, part of me wanted to believe her. Old instincts die hard. "I've missed you," she added. I nodded slowly. "Maybe," I said, "but missing someone and respecting them are two different things." The air shifted. The apology she thought would disarm me didn't, because this time I was listening for truth, not emotion. I sat down across from her. "What changed, Rachel?" She blinked. "What do you mean?" 9 days ago, you needed 3 weeks to find clarity. Now you're back early saying it was a mistake. So, what changed? Her gaze dropped to her hands. "I talked to Melissa," she said finally. "She mentioned running into Trevor's girlfriend. She said you seemed different, happier." I leaned forward slightly. "And that scared you?" She hesitated. "It scared me to think I might have lost you." "Or lost control of me?" I asked. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. I kept my voice calm, steady. "This trip wasn't about clarity, was it? You wanted space to do whatever you wanted, with the comfort of knowing I'd still be here when you got back." She looked up, eyes wide. "That's not true." "It's exactly true," I said. Her silence confirmed it. You can't mirror honesty without seeing what's behind it. She opened her mouth to respond, but I spoke first. "I don't need you." Her head snapped up. "What?" "I don't need you," I repeated quietly. "That's what these 9 days taught me." The shock on her face said everything, because need was the foundation of her control. If I didn't need her, she couldn't save me. And if she couldn't save me, she couldn't define me. "You don't mean that," she said. "I do," I replied. "I love what we had once, but it's over. I just didn't realize it until you gave me space to breathe." Her jaw tightened, eyes wet. "You sound cold." "No," I said. "I sound clear." For years, I'd measured love by dependence. Now I measured it by freedom. And freedom, for the first time, felt like mine. She stood pacing. "I didn't come back for control, Ethan. I came back because I love you." "Love isn't control," I said, but that's what you've been giving me for years." "That's not fair." "It's fair," I said evenly. "You didn't want a partner, Rachel. You wanted proof that you mattered." She froze. "When you asked for a pause, it wasn't clarity you wanted. It was permission to live like I wouldn't notice." Her voice cracked. "You're twisting this." "No, I'm seeing it." I stepped closer, not angry, just certain. "You came back because you heard I was okay. Not because you missed me, but because you couldn't stand not being in control." Her eyes filled again, but I didn't flinch. "I'm not punishing you," I said softly. "I'm just done being managed." The room went quiet. For the first time, she had nothing left to say. And for the first time, I didn't need to hear her try. I walked to the desk and pulled out a folder. Thick, neat, yellow. I placed it on the coffee table beside the cutting board. Rachel's eyes followed the movement. Her breath caught. "What's that?" "Information," I said. "Financial papers, notes from a lawyer." Her face drained of color. "You filed for divorce?" "Not yet." I slid the folder closer to her side of the table. "But I'm ready." She didn't touch it, just stared. The air in the room shifted. The moment when denial finally met proof. "You met with someone," she whispered. "I met with myself first," I said. "The lawyer just helped me put it in writing." Her hand trembled as she opened the cover. Numbers, assets, separation of accounts, every detail of a life divided neatly on paper. For years, she'd managed everything. Budgets, bills, control disguised as care. Now the math belonged to both of us. And that, more than anything, terrified her. Her voice rose. "I can't believe this, Ethan. I asked for time to think, and you used it to plan our divorce?" "I didn't raise mine. You asked for time to decide if you wanted this marriage. I used the time to understand if I did." She blinked, trying to steady herself. "So that's it? You've made up your mind?" "Not yet," I said, "but I'm prepared either way." "Prepared," she repeated, shaking her head. "You make it sound like a business deal." "Marriage is a partnership," I said, "and ours stopped feeling like one a long time ago." Her anger broke through the fear. "I never wanted to end us." "You wanted control," I replied. "You just didn't want the cost of losing me." She fell silent again. The paper between us said more than either of us could. For the first time, I realized peace doesn't need to be loud. Sometimes it's just knowing your decision can stand on its own legs. She finally looked up, tears brimming. "I love you," she said softly. "Maybe you do," I answered. "But love isn't enough when it comes with control." She shook her head, voice breaking. "I never meant to control you." "Maybe not on purpose," I said, "but that doesn't make it less real." For years, she'd called her rules boundaries, her jealousy care, her guilt concern. And I'd believed her until I saw the difference between being loved and being managed. She wiped her cheeks, eyes darting around the room like she was seeing it for the first time. The weights, the wood, the space that no longer bent around her. "You really don't need me," she whispered. "I really don't," I said gently. Love had built the house, but self-respect was what kept it standing. She stood, grabbing her bag. The zipper sounded louder than her voice. "I'm staying with Melissa tonight," she said. I nodded. Probably smart. At the door, she hesitated. "I really did miss you." "I believe you," I said. "But missing someone and respecting them are two different things." She lingered for half a breath, then walked out. The door shut softly. No slam, no drama, just a clean click that echoed through the quiet house. I stood there, hands in my pockets, listening. Nothing. No footsteps. No voice asking what's wrong. No tension waiting to snap. Only silence. And for the first time in years, it didn't hurt. It healed. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through the house. Every room a memory. The wedding photo on the hallway wall. 2 smiles that once believed in forever. The kitchen table, where laughter had turned to lectures. The couch, where silence had become the language of survival. 6 years. It's strange how long you can live inside something that stopped living back. I sat down, holding the photo frame. Behind the glass, 2 strangers looked happy. I almost envied them. Then I whispered, "Thank you for getting me this far." I set it down, face first on the table, because sometimes closure isn't fire or anger, it's quiet recognition that the story you built together finally ran out of pages. The next morning, I stood by the window, coffee in hand. The mug felt warm, steady, the way I didn't not long ago. I picked up my phone and scrolled to Caldwell's number. He answered on the second ring. "Ethan, good to hear from you. How are things?" "I'm ready," I said. "For what?" "To file." A short silence, then a calm voice. "All right. Come in tomorrow morning. We'll make it official." "Thank you," I said. After hanging up, I exhaled slowly. No guilt, no fear, just certainty. 6 years of compromise, and it ended with a single decision. Not made in anger, not made to hurt her, made to protect what little piece I'd rebuilt. Money, property, documents. The things that once felt heavy now just felt like facts. No more emotional bookkeeping. Sometimes freedom costs a signature, and I was finally ready to pay. Caldwell's office smelled like leather and old books. The blinds filtered soft morning light across his desk. He handed me a pen. "Right here," he said, tapping the final line. I looked at the papers. Words on white, spelling the end of something that had already ended. My hand didn't shake. One stroke, then another, and just like that, it was done. Caldwell watched quietly. "You okay?" "I think so," I said. I leaned back, let out a long breath I didn't know I'd been holding. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't joy. It was release. Every muscle in my body loosened. The tension that used to hum beneath my skin was gone. I realized then, endings don't always echo. Sometimes they whisper, soft, final, and free. Caldwell gathered the papers into a neat pile. "This is one of the cleanest divorces I've handled," he said. I raised an eyebrow. "That good, huh?" He smiled faintly. "No kids, no house ownership, no shared debt. You two kept things separate. Makes this easy." "Guess we did something right then," I said, half smiling. He chuckled. "If you want my advice, don't look back. You've got a rare thing now." "What's that?" "Peace." I stood, shook his hand. "Peace sounds expensive." "Only at first," he said. Outside, the sky was overcast but calm. I walked to my car, the folder under my arm. The final paperwork of a life finished quietly. I laughed once to myself. Cleanest divorce or not, it was still the messiest kind of healing. That night, Trevor came over with a pizza box under his arm. No beer this time, just soda. "Signed?" he asked, dropping onto the couch. "Yeah," I said. "It's done." He nodded, no pity in his eyes. "Good. You look lighter." I smiled. "I feel lighter." We ate in silence for a few minutes. No big speeches, no sad music, just two friends chewing through normal life again. At one point he said, "You regret anything?" I thought about it, then shook my head. "The only thing I regret is not doing it sooner." He grinned, then "Welcome back, man." For the first time in years, dinner didn't taste like tension. It just tasted like pizza. Simple, hot, real. Saturday morning, my phone buzzed. "Rachel, can I come get the rest of my things tomorrow?" I stared at the message for a few seconds, then typed back, "Noon works." Short, clear, final. She replied, "Thanks." No heart, no smiley, just a word. I set the phone down and looked around the house. Every corner had air in it now. No clutter, no chaos, just space. It struck me, boundaries don't need anger to exist. They just need consistency. And for the first time in years, my boundaries didn't come from fear of losing her. They came from finally choosing myself. Sunday at noon, Rachel arrived with her friend Melissa. The air felt still, neutral, not angry, just empty. Boxes waited in the hallway, things I'd gathered the night before. Books she loved, sweaters she'd left folded in drawers, pieces of a life that no longer belonged here. They moved quietly, avoiding eye contact. The sound of tape ripping across cardboard filled the silence. I stayed in the living room, sipping coffee, watching sunlight stretch across the floor. With each box that left the house, the walls seemed to breathe deeper. At one point, she paused by the doorway. "This feels so strange," she said. "Strange doesn't always mean wrong," I replied. She nodded, turned away. By the time the car doors shut outside, the echo in the house had changed. Not hollow, open, not lonely, honest. A life stripped down to essentials. Mine. She lingered by the door, one small box still in her hands. "You sound so calm," she said softly. "Like this doesn't affect you at all." I looked at her, steady. "I'm not turning off my feelings," I said. "I'm just not letting them control me anymore." She frowned, searching my face for cracks. There were none. For years, she'd thrived on emotional reaction. Anger, guilt, anything that proved I still lived inside her orbit. Now, silence unnerved her more than shouting ever could. She nodded slowly. "I don't know how you do it." "I stopped fighting what already ended," I said. Her eyes glossed again. "You really have changed." "Yeah," I said, opening the door for her. "Finally." She stepped outside, sunlight brushing her shoulders. And for the first time, I didn't feel the urge to follow. Melissa carried the last box to the car. Rachel turned once more, standing in the doorway. "This is really happening," she said. "It is," I replied. She looked back into the house, eyes moving over bare shelves, empty corners. "I'll never understand how you can just turn off your feelings like that." I shook my head gently. "I didn't turn them off. I just stopped letting them run the show." She swallowed, nodded once, and stepped outside. The door closed quietly. Sunlight slipped through the windows, landing on the wooden floor. A soft gold warmth that filled the space she left behind. I stood there for a moment, breathing in that silence. It didn't hurt anymore. It felt earned. The house wasn't empty now. It was finally mine. Weeks passed. Routine returned. Not forced, just natural. I hit the gym with Carter. We pushed weights, swapped stories, laughed between sets. He slapped my shoulder after a good lift. "Man, you look alive again," he said. "Feels that way," I told him. Afterward, we grabbed coffee instead of beer. Talked about small things, hiking plans, new projects, life. No drama, no postmortem of the past. For the first time, my days felt full without being heavy. No one waiting to critique. No one keeping score. Just me, sweating, breathing, rebuilding. Freedom wasn't loud. It was repetition. Waking up early, moving my body, realizing that progress could be quiet and consistent. Each rep, each laugh, each breath, a small resurrection. One evening, I posted a photo online. The walnut cutting board I'd made during those long, quiet weeks. Didn't think much of it. But within a day, someone messaged, "How much for one like that?" I laughed, typed back a price, and by the weekend, I'd sold 3. Soon I made more. Cutting boards, shelves, small tables, nothing huge, just honest work. Orders trickled in, then multiplied. Every sale was a reminder I could build something from my own hands, and people wanted it. Money came, sure, but what mattered was pride, purpose. The shop grew, one piece at a time, and the sound of sandpaper became the rhythm of my mornings. In a strange, poetic way, the pause she asked for gave me the space to press play on a life that was truly mine. Months passed quietly. I woke early, brewed my own coffee, worked with my hands. Orders from the woodworking shop came steady, not overwhelming, just enough to fill the days with purpose. When I wasn't sanding or carving, I hit the gym with Carter. He'd gotten me into climbing too. Ropes, chalk, bruises, laughter. It hurt in the best way. Nights were simple. Cooking dinner, reading, sometimes silence, sometimes music. No drama, no constant apology loop, just balance. Something I'd forgotten existed. I didn't chase peace anymore. I built it, board by board, breath by breath. People say starting over is hard, but sometimes it's the staying that kills you. Leaving was the easy part. Living again was the real work. And I was finally doing it. 6 months later, I stopped at a small cafe downtown. Same one Rachel and I used to visit on Sundays. Old habit, maybe. As I stood in line, I saw her, sitting by the window with a man in a suit. New haircut, new clothes, same nervous smile. She noticed me a moment later. Her eyes widened, then softened. She excused herself and walked over. "Ethan," she said. "Rachel." For a second, we just stood there. No tension, no storm, just two people who once shared everything, now sharing air. She glanced at my hands, the faint scars, the calluses. "You're still doing woodworking?" "Yeah," I said. "It's going well." She smiled politely, but there was a flicker of something behind it. Recognition, maybe, that I'd really moved on. "This is weird," she said, half laughing. "A little," I replied. She looked back toward her table. "He's waiting. I should get back." "Sure." She hesitated. "I'm glad you're doing well." "Me too," I said. For a moment, that silence between us wasn't heavy anymore. It was mutual, a quiet understanding that the story was over, and neither of us needed to rewrite it. She nodded once, turned away, and I felt something strange. Not sadness, not nostalgia, just gratitude. She'd given me the push I needed to find myself. And in her own way, maybe she'd found something too. When she walked out of sight, I ordered my coffee, sat by the window, and watched the city move like nothing had ever paused. Steam curled from the cup in my hands. Outside, traffic hummed, steady and alive. My phone buzzed. A message from Carter. "Climbing tonight?" I smiled. "Absolutely." Simple word, but it carried everything. Yes to movement. Yes to tomorrow. Yes to the man I'd become. I finished my coffee, stood, and tossed the cup away. The air outside was crisp, the kind that makes you feel like the world's still wide open. No backward glances, no what-ifs, just forward. The gym buzzed with life. Carter waved from across the room, rope in hand. "Let's go, man." We clipped in, hands on the wall, chalk dust rising. With every pull upward, I felt the weight of the past fall away, inch by inch, breath by breath. The world below shrank, the doubt, the guilt, the ghost of who I'd been. At the top, I paused, chest heaving. Carter shouted from below, "You good?" "Better than good," I called back. The music played loud, bright. For once, the climb wasn't about escape. It was about arrival. Freedom wasn't waiting at the peak. It was in every hold I reached for. Every moment I chose my own direction. I looked out across the gym, smiled, and thought, she paused our marriage. But I pressed play on my life. As I walked home that night, chalk still on my hands, I thought about everything that had happened. The dinner, the silence, the pause. She thought she needed clarity. So did I. But clarity doesn't come from distance. It comes from honesty. And sometimes honesty hurts enough to set you free. The man she left behind had been afraid of losing her. The man walking home now knew the truth. You don't lose someone who is never really with you. Streetlights flickered across the pavement, each one marking another step away from who I was. I didn't look back. There was nothing left to see there. People talk about control like it's a trophy, something you win, something you hold tight. But the harder you grip it, the faster it slips away. That's the irony. The more you try to own every moment, the more you lose the moments worth keeping. When Rachel left, I thought control meant saving what we had, fixing it, convincing her to stay. But what I was really trying to fix was my own fear. The fear of not being enough, the fear of being alone with myself. It took losing everything I thought I needed to understand something simple. Sometimes you have to lose control to take your life back. Control isn't power. Peace is. There's a kind of peace that doesn't need anyone's permission. It doesn't come from someone loving you right. It comes from you deciding that you're done living on emotional credit. I used to mistake quiet for weakness. Now I know. Quiet is where strength lives. It's where truth finally gets to speak after years of being drowned out by noise. Because life isn't about steering every outcome. It's about learning when to let the wheel go. When you stop fighting for control, you start discovering what was waiting behind it. Clarity, stillness, freedom. You start realizing that real strength isn't about what you can change. It's about what you can endure without breaking and what you can walk away from without hate. Men like me, we grow up hearing, "Be tough, don't cry, don't show weakness." So we build walls, we armor up, we take pride in surviving storms that we were never meant to stand in forever. But surviving isn't living. It's just breathing under pressure. And when the pressure finally stops, you feel like you're falling apart. But that's not destruction. That's decompression. That's what freedom feels like. It's heavy at first. Then it's air. I spent years trying to prove I was stable by holding on to things that made me sink. Now I know. Stability isn't about never losing balance. It's about trusting yourself enough to find it again when you do. When I sat in that lawyer's office signing the papers that ended our marriage, I thought I'd feel broken. Instead, I felt still, like the noise had finally stopped. It's strange how something you once feared losing can become the very thing that sets you free. I used to think love meant saving someone. Now I think it means letting both of you be who you really are, even if that means apart, because sometimes the healthiest thing you can do for love is stop forcing it to survive. People ask, "Don't you wish she'd stayed?" And I tell them the truth. No. I wish I'd learned sooner that love without respect is just dependency wearing a nicer name. You can't build peace on top of control. You can't build trust on top of fear. And you can't build yourself while trying to hold together something that keeps you small. The day I let go of control wasn't the day I lost her. It was the day I found myself. And I found that I liked that version of me. The one who could breathe again. Who didn't walk on eggshells. Who didn't apologize for existing. I found the man who could be alone and not call it loneliness. Who could sit in silence and call it peace. That's the real lesson, not about winning or losing, but about recognizing that freedom isn't earned, it's remembered. We were born free. Then we start giving pieces of ourselves away, to love, to approval, to comfort, until one day you realize there's nothing left but reflection. That's when the work begins, building yourself again, piece by piece, without asking for permission this time. And maybe that's what control really is, not the power to change others, but the courage to stay true to yourself when everything else is falling apart. I look back now and see that the man I used to be wasn't weak. He was just tired of pretending peace could be found in a house built on anxiety. So I stopped pretending. And that, right there, was the most honest thing I've ever done. It didn't happen overnight. Freedom never does. It comes quietly, in moments that feel too small to matter, choosing to stay calm, choosing to walk away, choosing to rebuild. Until one day you realize that your life is yours again. Not shared, not borrowed, just yours. That's when you understand the goal was never control. The goal was peace. And peace was waiting the whole time, just on the other side of letting go. If you've ever been told someone needs space, maybe that's the space you need too. I know how that sounds. When they say space, it feels like rejection. Like they're slowly walking away, leaving you in the doorway wondering what you did wrong. You replay conversations, try to find the exact sentence where things shifted. You check your phone, waiting for a message that doesn't come. You start to think silence is punishment. But here's what I learned the hard way. Silence isn't always punishment. Sometimes it's permission. Because when someone asks for space, they're really telling you they want freedom without responsibility. And maybe it's your chance to find out what freedom means for you. You see, men my age, we grow up thinking strength means holding on. That love means endurance. That being a good man means never walking away. So we stay. Through the fights. Through the cold shoulders. Through the quiet nights when the person beside you feels like a stranger. We tell ourselves, it'll get better. We try harder, buy flowers, fix sinks, fix cars, try to fix people who don't want to be fixed. We call it love. But really, it's fear. Fear of failure, fear of starting over, fear of being the villain in someone else's story. I used to think leaving meant quitting. Now I know. Staying too long can be the real surrender. When she said, "I need space," I thought it meant I wasn't enough. What it really meant was that she'd already left in her mind, long before she packed a suitcase. So when I finally gave her that space, I found something she never expected: peace. The kind of peace that doesn't come from winning or losing. It comes from stopping the fight entirely. If you've ever sat alone after someone walked out, and the quiet felt like it might swallow you whole, I get it. I've been there, in that kitchen, staring at a cold plate of dinner, thinking, what now? And here's the answer I never thought I'd find. Now is when you start breathing again. It doesn't happen fast. The first breaths feel strange, forced, like your lungs forgot what air is. You reach for your phone, then stop. You start a thought, then let it fade. Then one morning, you realize you made it through a whole day without checking if they missed you. And that's when healing begins. Quietly, invisibly, but undeniably. We live in a world that tells men to be strong, but never explains what real strength looks like. It's not lifting weights or never crying. It's not stoicism that shuts the world out. Real strength is standing in the wreckage of something you loved and deciding to build yourself instead. It's learning that solitude isn't a sentence. It's an invitation to meet the person you were supposed to be before the noise drowned him out. Maybe you used to be that guy, the one who laughed too loud, who loved too much, who dreamed big before someone told you to grow up. He's still in there, waiting behind all the compromises you made to be enough for someone else. You don't lose him in divorce. You find him there. And once you meet him again, you'll see. You were never the broken one. You were just buried. When people talk about midlife, they call it a crisis. They say it's when men buy motorcycles or chase youth. But I think it's something quieter. It's the moment a man realizes his life doesn't have to be measured by who stays or who leaves. It can be measured by peace, by mornings without dread, by dinners that don't taste like tension, by sleep that actually restores you. Some nights, I still think about her, not with bitterness, just as a reminder of who I was. Because the truth is, not everyone who breaks your heart is your enemy. Some of them are just teachers with lessons that hurt like hell. And the lesson she taught me was this: you can't be both free and controlled. You can't heal in the same place that broke you. And you can't call it love if it keeps costing you yourself. So if you're listening to this, if you're a man sitting alone tonight, feeling small because someone said they need time, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not less. You are not abandoned. You are becoming. Let the silence teach you. Let the space stretch without rushing to fill it. Let yourself remember what joy sounded like before it needed permission. There's a whole life waiting for you outside the pause. A quieter, stronger, truer life. And maybe someday when you look back, you'll realize that pause wasn't the end. It was the first time the world stopped long enough for you to hear yourself again. She pressed pause to find herself. I fast-forwarded and found mine. Sometimes the person who walks away isn't the one who leaves. It's the one who finally moves on. Guitar lo-fi hums under the final words. Soft, reflective. If this story hit home, hit subscribe, because sometimes letting go is how we grow.